Hello everyone, it's ASMR Duck. Quack, quack, quack. I want to start by wishing you all a very happy holiday. I'm in my finest Christmas garb. It's a little bit smaller than I was expecting. Maybe it's all the Christmas treats that I've been having. Anyway. So, what I want to share with you today is a few months ago I was given an amazing present, which was a workshop to forge my own knife. And so I spent the entire day working with a blacksmith, creating a blade of my design, and it was one of the most fun hands-on experiences I've ever had. And so here it is. Honestly, I'm so proud of it, and I'll show you a little bit of the process of me making it. But if you want to skip right to the leatherworking, just hit the timestamp below. And so I want to be making a sheath for this knife because I want to have it be like the whole thing be something that I've made, from the knife to the sheath, because it means a lot to me. And so a few months back I actually made a sheath for it. It was my first time making one, which was super, super cool. But I ended up getting it a little bit dirty. I ended up hunting deer for the first time in my life this year, and I was successful in getting one. And I ended up using the knife that I made in the process, which was really fantastic, and it's a good blade. Anyway, I don't want to get into the gory details of it all, but anyway, that sheath ended up becoming unusable. So I started making this one, and so I've cut it out and I've made a line on it. So how it's going to work is fold it, and this becomes a belt loop, and then this will become a popper to hold the blade in place. But since we've last met, I've been trying to improve my leatherworking skills, and one of the big things I've been getting into is carving. And so, one sec, I'll just get an example for you. And so, here is an example of a coaster that I've made. And as you can see, it's I have embossed into the surface of it the pattern of a rose with a wreath of flowers. And I'm super excited about this because it combines the practicality of making useful products with also more of a creative outlet side to it. So I'm going to be doing the same thing to that sheath that I've just shown you, and we're going to be using this template that I got from Elk Studios, and we're going to carve that on. So let's get to it. Quack. So here at the forge, we started heating up some German steel, which came as a rod, and then myself and this fantastic blacksmith from Germany started to hammer out the rod into more of a square to make it more usable. And this guy made it look so easy with the little hammer. Like, I had the big sledgehammer and I was wailing away at this thing, and man, it will give you some pipes if you do this for a living, let me tell you. And now we are getting to use the power hammer. Anyway, it's a hydraulic hammer, which kind of takes a lot of the rough work out of it. And you can see that we're getting into a long rectangle. And afterwards, I'm now hammering out the rough shape of a knife, heating up the handle, trying to get it square, and then you grind an edge onto it. You got to be really careful with this to make sure that both sides are even, and you gradually work your way up in grit, going all the way to a mirror finish. Once you've heated or you've created your edge, you then need to temper the blade, which means that you get it really hot, and then you plunge it in oil to kind of shock the metal. So this makes it very hard, but it also makes it brittle. So after plunging it in oil, you then kind of gently heat the metal up afterwards to relax it. Which honestly I can relate to the metal after a long day's worth of work. And then I picked out a maple burr for the wood for the handle, and then I sanded it to the shape of my hand. And then afterwards, dip it in mineral oil. Look how shiny that is. So, now let's get to the sheath. So what I'm doing now is I'm using a piece of tracing paper to trace the pattern of the deer with the oak leaves and acorns. Doing this at 5 times normal speed, because it took me about 3 hours to do this, and well, I value your time, so I don't want to take too much of it showing you the process. But I do think there's something quite satisfying about seeing a time lapse of something being created. I got the idea for doing these videos from actually seeing another leather maker and his channel called Little King Goods, where he creates some fantastically beautiful products. So now that I've done the tracing, I take the sheath to be, and you get it wet. And this is so that you can indent the leather more easily. And then it also takes on more of a, I don't know if the colouring when you're doing indenting is called patina, or if that's just as leather ages. But regardless, I'm taking a stylus and I'm tracing the pattern onto the leather. And I've been told that a good way to do this is to start at the center and then work your way out. And I think that's because it's, if you forget something, or if it moves, it's easier to correct. So, as you can see, I'm checking to make sure that everything's lining up. It got a little tricky with the acorns and oak leaves. One of the big tips that I I've been taught is to understand what the end result is going to look like, because obviously that will dictate how you go about creating it. So what this is a swivel knife, and I'm just sharpening it at the moment. I put some jeweler's rouge on the leather and takes off a tiny bit of the metal, keeping it razor sharp. But what's really cool about this knife is I can swivel it in my hand while still applying pressure, so I can make very minute and precise cuts into the leather. And so I'm not cutting all the way through, but I am cutting maybe about midway through, and keeping the leather wet helps with this process. And so I'm just taking my time, making all the little delicate cuts. And like most crafts, it's important to not rush, only thinking about the end goal, but to enjoy the process, as the final work is the culmination of all the care that you put into it along the way. And this is definitely the most detailed carving that I've done so far. I'm also making a motorcycle gas tank bib for my friend for a Christmas present, but that's taking a while. But maybe I'll show you guys the end result. So I'm just working away on the leaves now. So I made this as a tribute to the experience that I had with hunting a deer. It was my second year of trying to hunt, and my first year I didn't get anything. And looking back on it, I am grateful for that, because I took the year in between to educate myself and to improve everything from my equipment to my shooting ability to learning how to deal with an animal once you've got it. Because looking back on hindsight, if I got something, I don't know what I would have done with it. A very silly story from the actual process, but maybe I'll do that, talk about that later. But the meaning of that experience is something that was very profound. And so the next step, once I've carved the outline in, is to begin hammering the outline. And so this is to make the design stand out from the background, which I will create afterwards. So I'm just methodically going along and around the outline of the deer, getting each one of its antler spikes. So one of the tricks with this is to hold your, I guess you'd call it a stamp, upright, because it's at an angle, so it's kind of like a little wedge. You point the wedge out to where you want to create the shading. And as you can see, I hold it with most of my fingers, and I use my pinky to help smoothly move it along as I'm hitting it with my mallet. I actually am almost holding it just above the leather, so after I hit it, it bounces out, so I'm not dragging it through. And this allows for moving smoothly and evenly across my design. So, while I'm no expert at leather crafting, as no beginner is, I really enjoyed this one for the technical style of it. So before this I'd been making coasters and getting comfortable with the process and the different stages and techniques that are required when you're making a design. And so this was a big branch off from that. And then I also got to put my own little personal touch, or my way of getting it done. One of the things I really like about when I'm doing a bit of a larger project is I get into a flow state where my mind stops thinking about my day or anything else, and I'm just present and focused on the work at hand and doing a good job. And going into 2024, that's going to be one of the things that I'm going to focus on bringing into all aspects of my life, is really becoming process focused. Last year I had a very good year, but towards the end of it I found that I was moving unconsciously through life, and I made some changes in my career because find it important to be conscious when you're going through life in such a manner, because otherwise you can sometimes end up in a place and wake up one day and have no idea how you got there. And once that occurs, the point of that is not to judge, to chastise yourself, but to acknowledge and then create a plan on how you want to get back to where you want to be. Because that's one of the beautiful things about life, is that it does give you lots of chances. And while it may never be a clean canvas, you're able to incorporate or fix. Just like this sheath. For anyone experienced with this, you'll probably be able to see that I make a ton of mistakes or don't do things the proper way. But I'm still trying to do a good job and to create something beautiful with meaning. And I would say that's more important than getting something right the first time, is the ability to persevere and to be adaptable. Because often life doesn't go our way, but it's about finding ways to make it work. Bet you didn't think you were going to get a philosophical lecture for this. So what I'm doing now is I'm adding in some extra detailing into the leaves, kind of trying to give it more of a shape and a flow. And as you can see, I've textured the deer skin, the antlers, and oh gosh, this was a finicky little bit. I was trying to texture the caps of the acorns because I made them so small. It was a little tricky to get in there, but we did it. But yeah, let me know what you think about this sort of video style. If you like it, if you find it relaxing, or if it's like just odd. Now I'm adding dimension into the leaves. So I'm using a shader. I'm just hammering into the leaves. And you can kind of see where the hammer points get more shiny. That's due to the leather compressing and the oils coming out. And so now I'm beginning the process of background shading. So I'm holding a large pear shader. It's called a pear shader because I think it's like a teardrop shape, but they call it a pear. And it's got a texture to it. So I'm just going around my primary design and creating contrast. So this is good for helping fill the area and really letting your design pop. And there we go. So I'm just tap, 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 tapping away. I actually really enjoyed this bit. Just getting to practice my mallet strokes. So, I've done it. And now I'm sharpening my edger, putting some glue where the belt loop is going to be. Putting a weight on it, letting the glue harden, and now I'm going to sew it on. So often you'll glue something into place, and then you'll stitch it. I had such a silly time trying to thread this needle, and I have no clue why. Usually I'm quite dexterous, but anyway, as it goes. And what I'm doing is I'm saddle stitching it. So what that involves is using 2 needles, one on each end of the string. And then one leads, one follows. Just stitch, stitch, stitching away. And this part made me realise that I really need a thimble, because I got a little irritated with continuously stabbing myself. So at this point I've installed a popper into the clasp, and now I'm creating the second half of it. So you put a backing in, then you put the popper and a tiny anvil behind, and then you hammer it in, and you can see it all fits together really nicely. And that little pizza cutter that I used is to map out my stitch line, seeing how it all looks when it's folded together. So I'm adding some glue. And also, if anyone's experienced with leather crafting and you're watching this, feel free to comment and reach out about ways that I can do things better. Like, I'm by no means married to my techniques, and I'm always happy to learn. So I'm just using some clamps now to keep it all in place, and hammering the back just to get it a little more flat and cooperative. Little segue. So now what I'm doing is I'm creating my stitch holes. So I don't know if these are exactly pricking irons due to their design, but I guess we'll call them pricking irons for now. And I'm just going along, creating a line, and one of the tricks that I learnt is so this has 6 spikes on it. To keep a straight line, what I've been doing is I've been putting the 2 back spikes into the 2 front holes of the ones that I just made. And so that way you get it's easier for you to create a straight line, which is important because it does show up when you're doing your stitching. And then I use a 2-punch spike when I'm going around the curve. And then I'm using this spike to open up the holes a little bit more. The leather that I'm using is quite a heavy ounce, which means just that its thickness is quite thick. And so it was quite tight getting the pricking irons through it. So I just opened it up, each hole a little bit more, to make it easier for me to get my needle and thread through. Because there's no point in having to apply undue force into the work. It just makes it more liable for an accident or an injury to occur. So again, I'm doing the saddle stitch. So I'm using my 2 needles, starting at the bottom, and I'm actually going through a few times at the bottom just to give it some extra strength. I don't know if that's really needed or not. The saddle stitch is a incredibly strong stitch. And so we're just going back and forth with each needle. Each one goes through the same hole at each side. So you work your way into a pattern. Next time I'll definitely try and get the camera angle better. I don't think my thumb is that interesting. But you know, this is all part of the learning experience. So I think that my next project that I will show you will be a wallet. For Christmas I was given a wallet kit, which was really nice. So I think I'll do that, and we'll try and record it, because sometimes I'll make things and not document them, and then they turn out being really nice. Like I made a holder, or a pouch rather, for my cards of Dutch Blitz. Dutch Blitz is one of my favourite card games to play, and played it so much that the box which held the cards has completely disintegrated. So maybe I'll make a second one and I'll show you guys. So we're over the halfway mark now, getting towards the end. I'm not sure if you can tell, but definitely hit my flow now. Things are moving along, nice and smooth. So, once I'm done with this, we're almost finished. But as you can see, the edge of where the two parts of the leather meet is a little bit rough. So what I'm going to do, once I'm finished my stitching, is I'm going to use something called tokenol and a burnisher. So what I'm doing now is I'm just wrapping around the final stitch. And this for me is mostly just decorative. I don't think you'd call it a braid, but for those that do braid, let me know if it is or not. So just tying off a little double knot. You cut the strings and then use a little lighter to melt the edges and create it tight. So I'm using a little bit of water on the edge. And this is to bring the oils to the surface. And I'm just evening it out a little bit with my blade. Then I'm rounding off the edges. Then again applying water. And then using my burnisher, or also called a slicker, to what it does is it compresses the fibers of the leather and rounds out the edge to help kind of seal it against the water. And then I'm applying the tokenol to give it an extra level of shine, a little bit more protection. One thing that I'm going to start doing is getting a piece of canvas, because all the leather videos that I've seen that use canvas get an amazing, almost like mirror shine. I just don't know where I'd get a piece of canvas, to be honest. Like from an art canvas. Anyway, thoughts for later. So, I hope you found this interesting and entertaining. It's been a pleasure getting to make it for you. And there we have an amazing fit. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video as much as I enjoyed making it. It was such a fun experience getting to make this. And I'm really proud of this. And it's definitely one of the cooler projects that I've done, and just the meaning that this whole thing has for me is a lot. So thank you for joining me on this journey, and if you enjoyed it, please give a like and subscribe. Stay tuned for more. Alright, happy holidays. Take care. I wish you all a wonderful season and a happy new year, and we'll reconvene then. Okay, bye for now.